One thing about me is that I love reading and books. The trance-like state it puts me in and the faraway places it takes me, reading has almost always brought me joy. That feeling of coming home after a long day, changing into comfy clothes, and curling up on the couch to spend hours getting lost in a book is my favorite. That is until I take a break and naturally go on my phone, check Snapchat and Instagram, and see that a lot of my peers would either be clustered together at someone's house on Snap Maps or posting together on Instagram. And this would make me feel really insecure to where I turned off my Snap Maps and I never posted on Instagram so nobody would know where I was, what I was doing, with or without friends. I'm sure many of you are familiar with FOMO, or fear of missing out, but it's made up of two processes: feeling like you're missing out on something social and having a compulsive need to maintain a social connection, even if you don't really want to. So sadly, something that I genuinely found enjoyment in, reading, turned to be something that I got a lot of anxious feelings from. I felt obligated to go out when my social battery was depleted, and I felt guilty for wanting to do something that I loved because I was doing it alone. Now, being alone is definitely not an easy thing to do. There's a lot of hesitance and discomfort when it comes to thinking about doing something by yourself. But going to the bank or the grocery store alone, that's pretty easy, right? These activities are practical, and we don't really do them as a way to be social. But also, any sort of downtime we have during these activities, we need to fill with some sort of stimulation, such as scrolling on our phones. Think about it. When you're out alone in public, after a teacher is done teaching, or waiting in line, what do you usually do? Pull out your phone and pretend to look busy. At least that's what I do. There's this invisible string that pulls you to look surrounded by others, and it's natural to want to look busy and to have a lot of friends, as it makes it attractive to other people. But this just makes it even more difficult to go out and do activities for fun, like shopping or out to eat, alone. In a 2015 study, researchers asked participants how they'd view others who do activities for fun, alone, and most of the responses were that these people would look like they don't have many friends and that they were lonely. There's a common misconception between loneliness and being alone, that they're synonyms of one another, when in reality, there's a key difference. Loneliness is a feeling which can have detrimental effects when long-lasting, and it's even become an epidemic in the US in the past few years. Loneliness has correlations to increasing the risk of arthritis, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, dementia, and even suicide attempts. So it's safe to say that humans are social creatures and we do need people in our lives. But loneliness occurs when our social and emotional needs aren't fully met, meaning you can feel lonely in a group of people. We often talk about the concept of quality over quantity when it comes to things that we buy: clothes, toys, technology. We want things that are reliable and that will make us happy and satisfied for a long time. So how about we start to think about this in the context of our relationships and the people in our lives? Having many, many friends does have its benefits, such as expanding our sense of identity because we're exposed to so many different people. And maintaining healthy friendships leads to positive life satisfaction, lessens stress, and is better for our overall mental and physical health. And the best part is, you don't need dozens of friends to enjoy these benefits. A 2020 study revealed that having 3 to 5 friends is more than enough to feel fulfilled. And as it turns out, our brains only limit us to having just 5 very, very close emotional relationships. This is because it takes time to reach a level of emotional closeness with a person, around 200 hours. And to try to achieve this, or anything like this, with every person in our lives is just unrealistic. I personally felt drained after spending time with a large group of people, despite the compulsion to do so. But when I took the time, by myself, to step away from large hangouts, and to not hang out with people I didn't really want to spend much time with, I was able to identify what I want and need from my friendships, and I was able to find who my true friends were. Being alone or in solitude is often confused with the feeling of loneliness, but solitude is simply a state of being. There doesn't have to be a negative connotation associated with it, but because there's so much positive research that humans benefit from spending time with others, solitude's gotten a pretty bad rap, and we often ignore the fact that we also need some time alone. And there are many benefits in carving out time for yourself. Practicing solitude helps refresh our minds and bodies and reconnect with the world around us. When our brains are constantly stimulated, we don't have a chance to reset our minds to clear our brains. And yes, sleep is always helpful, but we also need meaningful and intentional time alone to shut our brains off correctly. With this, we can improve our concentration, productivity, and creativity. By spending more time alone, we can find our passions and discover our truest selves. When we're part of a group, we're more likely to go along with what the group is doing or thinking, and these may not always be things that we would do if we were alone. I never really found comfort in just freely talking about books with a lot of people in my life, so I thought that I had to push off my love for reading for a bit. But ever since I got my license last year, I always keep a book in my car to read if I have a few minutes before I have to go into school in the morning, or if I just want some time alone after I pull into my driveway. By doing this, I rediscovered my love for reading. I'm a big Goodreads fan, and I've been using it since 7th grade just to keep track of my goals and what I've been reading throughout the years. But I began to actively use it in leaving ratings and reviews on books, and later commenting on other people's posts. Now, I wasn't doing this as a way to actively seek other people's connection, but unexpectedly, I found a community in doing this. By just freely talking about my passions, and later joining online book groups. A personal favorite book group that I'm part of is called Swifties Who Also Read, where you're free to talk about all things Taylor Swift and books, my absolute favorite. And a funny conversation that really stuck with me was when we were talking about the love triangle from our album Folklore and comparing that love triangle to books that we've read. So reading really became something that connected me with others, even though I never would have expected that I would have strengthened my relationships or even found a community in doing something alone. Solitude tends to be something to fear or be guilty of, but through this exploration of myself, it's really an amazing thing. In our society, solitude is seen as unusual or punishment or torturous to some extent. But let's challenge the negativity surrounding solitude and instead use its power to enrich our lives. I encourage you to spend some intentional time alone, engaging and finding passions in solo activities, resisting the urge to mindlessly scroll on your phone, and just taking a few moments each day to reflect and be alone in your thoughts. With this, we open ourselves up to a world of possibilities where solitude becomes a source of joy, creativity, and genuine connection with ourselves and others. Thank you.